I'm Andrea Butcher, and this is Being at Work. Being a leader is hard. So on this show, I set out to talk with experienced leaders to learn from their pivotal moments, how they led through the challenges we can all relate to but are often unheard. Today's guest is Karen Alter, CEO and partner at Borshoff, an Indianapolis-based full-service communications agency. Karen has such an incredible story. She is passionate about her work, and just when life felt so on track, she got some big news that could have knocked her off track. But because of the relationships, support, and confidence of her work family at Borshoff, she not only led through the challenge with a lot of grace, she also emerged a stronger leader and has used the challenging experience to shape how she leads today. Karen was recently recognized by the Indianapolis Business Journal as a woman of influence, and her story definitely points to that. Throughout our conversation, she continually highlights the big impact of the little things. Check it out.
My journey at Borshoff started back in 1997. I know probably for some people, they're like, wait, what? When? Sometimes we have, younger new employees start, and I have to kind of set myself and say, now, how old were you? Were you even born back in 1997? So sometimes I feel a little bit like the oldest person around. But anyway, back in 1997, I came on board as an account director and providing that client-facing service to a set of clients. And my background was really more in the advertising and marketing and branding space, whereas Borshoff up to that point was really known for more traditional public relations. And so my affinity always with the agency and with the leadership and discussions was to grow the advertising side of the business. And really, the lines were starting to blur back then, and then later really blurred in terms of what clients were needing in terms of their communications and marketing needs. So it was just one of my goals, even back when I very first started, was to really grow that practice area. And so over the course of a decade plus, maybe about 13 years, I really just moved up into leadership roles, taking on more responsibility, supervising more teams, really as a kind of corollary to growing that advertising side of the business. So we started bringing on more traditional advertising executives and then additional art directors and writers and creative directors. So as that kind of rounded out, my skills and recognition for that work was really elevated with the business owners at the time. So I was really probably around 2010, really feeling like at the top of my game. I had been earmarked and promoted to senior vice president here at the agency, which was really probably about the highest point that you can be before being an owner, and really feeling like I was doing what I loved and was really, firing on all cylinders and everything. And my son at that point in time was 10. And so, he was kind of a little more self-sufficient, doing his thing, could, brush his own teeth and get dressed and things like that. So things were just feeling really, really good at that point in time. And at that same time, then unfortunately, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so it was a really challenging year in that I was going on this trajectory or this path to success. And really, when you hear the C word, I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably have experience with that, whether it's themselves or someone else. But when you hear that, boom, you stop in your tracks.
Yeah, well, I can't even imagine what that must have been like. Yeah, it sounds like things were so good for you in so many ways, and then you get that diagnosis.
Yeah, it kind of was out of the blue. And so it was based on just a routine exam. And I do encourage everyone to please keep up with your preventive medical appointments, because that's really how my cancer was found. And so over the course of that year, I was pretty sick off and on. I had to do both chemo and radiation. And it just really, it did, like I said, just sort of stop me in my tracks. And What I was overwhelmed by, of course, I had the support of my family and friends. I mean, anytime you go through something like that, the support network that builds up around you and supports you through that is just amazing. I think what I was even more overwhelmed by was the support from my Borshoff family, just in terms of the team members just ebbed and flowed with what I needed. And what I mean by that is that we provide client service. So our clients are number one, and trying to keep them happy and work towards their goals. It's a challenge when you're, fully healthy. So just in terms of the support that was provided me from the ownership, from the leadership ownership down to even just an admin support was incredible, where people stepped in, they stepped up. We never missed a beat with any of my clients. And it was really just so amazing that I could kind of come in and out based on just if I was having a good day, I was doing my thing and I was really contributing. And then other days, if I needed to not even, be reachable, I wasn't. So that flexibility and that support was just truly amazing.
Yeah, so I'd love to dive into that a little bit, because this is something that happens in organizations, right? Where people show up with challenges in lots of different ways, and this was a big one that you were faced with. I suspect because you'd been with the organization for so long, the depth of your relationships was really helpful. What else do you attribute the seamlessness? You said you never missed a beat. There was a lot of flexibility. They ebbed and flowed with what you needed. What do you attribute that to?
I think it's the culture that we have here. We're very much a partnership approach, not only with each other, but with our clients. And we have to have that reliability in order to share common goals and really work toward common metrics and common results for our clients. And so I think that kind of really just came through. It was very well exhibited in my personal experience. I also think that I am a very relational person. I kind of wear all my feelings on my sleeve. And so my relationships like you said, 13 years here, I have really good friends, and you're with these people a lot, and you go through a lot of highs and lows and big things and little things. And so my relationships, I think, were just so strong and so deep that there was just a true passion and care, genuine care for me and for each other, that it really just was kind of easy. There wasn't really any struggle through that at all. And there might have been, and they never shared it with me, but it seemed very seamless.
Well, and it sounds like how you led through it also set the tone for that seamlessness.
Right. I've always prided myself on work relationships and work friendships. I really feel like that's something that can make the difference for just in terms of the work that you can create together and the results that you can achieve. So I've always prided myself on, I have friends from my very first job back in 1985 after I graduated from Butler. And I just feel like having those deep relationships really does impact the work that you do in a big way.
Yeah, especially during such a challenging time.
For sure.
Talk a little more about when I asked you what you attributed to, the first thing you said was your culture, and then you talked about your relationships. I'm curious what advice you would give leaders who are working with colleagues who have had a tough diagnosis or any big challenge in their personal life. How did people respond to you in a way that was so helpful during that time?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to remember, which sounds funny because it was only 10 years ago or almost 10 years ago. But I think it was the little things that had the biggest impact on me, whether it was a text that just said, thinking about you. I think this was maybe even before emojis. So I'm not sure there were that many emojis back then in 2010. I'd have to do some research on that. But it could have just been a quick, hi, thinking of you, how are you doing? Or a card in the mail. Sometimes I had coworkers drop off, even if I wasn't able to see them when they came to the house, they'd drop off meals or teddy bears or anything like that. So it really varied in terms of what people did. Oh, I know one time I was sort of starting to feel like I could do some work. And so I don't think I had a laptop. The technology has really, I'm realizing how much technology has changed. But for some reason, we had like a little iPad or something like that. And they brought it to me. And when I turned it on, there was this really fun message. It was like this sort of video message with music. And so there were just little things like that, and our team is so creative. So they always want to take something and just make it really, really special and really great. So it was just really fun to receive those different things and through different channels, just that kind of hit right at the right time.
That's really good that it wasn't like any big act of.
It wasn't.
It was the little things just to show you that they care. We're here for you. We support you.
Right. It was really special. And then even when I would come back to the office, there was just support here, like drink your water and can I go get you your lunch or whatever it was. And so it was just, like I said, the little things just really added up.
Well, and that's such a good and simple takeaway. You know, I often hear from leaders when they're supporting team members who are going through a big personal challenge. Like I've had a lot of leaders say, like, gosh, I don't know what to say. Like it's awkward and I can't really relate to that because I've not experienced it. And so what I hear on what you're saying is, you know, it's just being empathetic, just saying, hey, I'm here for you. I support you. Those little things that say, I care.
Right. Sometimes just a simple, I'm thinking about you. Let me know if there's anything you need. And I know sometimes if I'm the one sending that message, it sounds maybe a little empty, but it does impact the person.
That's good. Okay, so let's go back to the tough year, right? You've given us a lot of insight around the culture and the support from your Borshoff family during that time. So then at some point you emerge back into the workforce, and let's talk about that too, like your healing and how you're feeling today. And I know there's 10 years in there, but tell us more about coming back into the workforce and how that was.
Absolutely. So yeah, I finished 2010. I had finished up my chemo and radiation, and after being pretty sick, I was immersing myself back into the everyday workflow as much as I could. And at the end of my treatment, sort of at the end of that year, 2010, we had our holiday party, and I was really just at that time kind of being around more and everything. And I got pulled aside after the party by the partners, the 4 partners at the time, and at that point was asked to be owner and partner at Borshoff.
Oh my goodness.
So what a contrast to what I had been going through up to that point. Was this really what I felt like was maybe a really low point, to have such the antithesis of that and this high point of something that I had thought about and was working towards, and to have them provide that vote of confidence for me when I wasn't feeling all that confident was really special. And I think it, honestly, you know, when I talk to people now who are dealing with maybe something medical or something health related, the mind is a powerful thing. And I felt like at that point, that was one of the things that it was almost like where mind was over matter. And that's a cliche, I know, but it's interesting what the mind can do to the body when you kind of tell yourself, I've got something to work for here. I've got to contribute. I have a responsibility. So I do think that was that overwhelming, overjoyed feeling was just part of my journey back to good health.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the moment at the holiday party when they're asking you that. I like, what was your initial reaction?
I was like, really? I think I sat there and just didn't really know what to say. It was very unexpected. And I think I was just so thankful and grateful and excited. And like I said, overwhelmed all at once, and had a lot of questions about timing and expectations, and getting, you know, me feeling like I needed to be back 100%. And basically Myra Borshoff the founder of the company saying, "We're here with you. We'll support you in that journey." And it was just I was really honored and humbled all at the same time.
Yeah. And then you see that. I love your point about the mind being such a powerful thing. Like that, it sounds like that was an important part of your healing journey then. Like all of a sudden,
It really was.
there was this confidence boost, and I've got something really meaningful because you love the work. I mean, we heard that earlier in your story when you were talking about how passionate you were about the work you were doing and growing the agency.
Exactly. It was just one of those, I was taking some medication to get myself back into good health, and going to work was just another piece to that puzzle where I was like, okay, I've got this motivation. I've got these goals. I've got these goals that I want to hit. And so how does that all fit together? And it really did. Of course, I had things at home that I was doing. So personally and professionally, it all kind of rolled up together. But it was just an amazing time to kind of see all of that and realize all of that at the same time.
Oh my goodness, what an incredible part of the story.
It really is. And sometimes I look back on it and I think, was that a dream? Did that really happen? And no, I know it did. But I do think, and you've probably heard this cliche too, just that can't, like, people that have had sort of a major medical event, or if cancer, if you will, how it changes them. I mean, a lot of spokespeople for different cancers talk about how they look at life differently. And it really is, there's so much truth in that. And I think for me, it helped me prioritize. It helped me establish those things that were really important. And also then back to that, being that relational person as a young, in my younger career, being or having that as a trait of mine. Now as the leader, as the CEO, I do the reverse of that. You know what I mean? Like, I can make sure that the employees know that I'm that kind of a relational, empathetic leader.
Absolutely. Yeah, the immediate trust and credibility it establishes. The just so real. I think that's, I mean, even having a hard time like putting words to this, the level of transparency through that experience. For me personally, and a lot of leaders, I know sometimes there's this, it's hard to be vulnerable. And particularly when you've got something like that going on, like you want to just like, I'm going to get through this. It's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And sometimes we're slow to share those weaknesses or those challenging situations for fear of being perceived as weaker. And through this whole experience, there was a lot of transparency. There was a lot of support. And ultimately, we want you to be partner owner in this organization.
Yeah, it's just been an amazing journey. And I feel like so often, in so many ways, I wanted to not have that be the topic, just because when you're living it, it feels heavy. Does feel like a weakness. But I think in other ways, there's so much strength that came out of that. And there's so much learning and self-reflection and self-awareness that I feel like that really was God's plan for me to experience that, so that then I could share and have that relatable experience with other people. Because I just think that everything happens for a reason. And while I don't wish cancer on anyone, I don't wish any ill on anyone, I do think each person's journey is independent to them. And that's just part of mine. And I think it's made me a stronger person and a better leader.
Yeah, you are the leader you are today because of all of your experiences, including this one.
Absolutely. I do agree with that.
So then you came into 2011 as partner owner at Borshoff. At what point? So tell us then about the last 9 years and the growth you've continued to do, the expansive leadership that's occurred over that time.
Yes. So, and our agency, we are so blessed. We just celebrated 35 years in business, and founded back in 1984, and just really proud of the roots and heritage of Myra and the previous owners that were really instrumental in getting us to where we are today. And kind of along the, in the first like 2011 to 2015, so maybe about a 5-year span, we were really clipping along and growing that advertising side of the business, which again, I said was really my focus area. And so that was really exciting. And it was also very evident to us at that point that, and I think I might have said this early on, but it was evident to us at that point that clients were really coming to us not really knowing what they wanted. It's hard to just box in, oh, I think I need an advertising campaign, or I think I need a media relations campaign. And so what was happening more and more was that we would just talk with clients about, hey, I've got this challenge, or I've got this need. How can Borshoff help me? And that's really when we were really finding a lot of our success, because we could enter in a relationship with the client and help them figure it out together, and then recommend what we thought was the best, most successful path forward, or the path that was going to get them the greatest impact. And so back in, the IBJ does its top 25. There's an advertising agency list, and then there's a top public relations list. And they do that based on number of employees. But in 2014, we were the number one. We'd always been, for many, many years, number one public relations agency. And then in that year, we were number one in both the advertising list and on the public relations list. And so that was just a feather in our cap here at Borshoff, because it really showed, it was a indicator of that work that we had done, where we had really grown that advertising side of the business. It was really exciting to celebrate that.
Yeah, the fruits of your labor, because you'd been working really hard to grow that. Yes,
exactly. And so then people started retiring. We had owners that started retiring. Myra Borshoff retired, and then Eric Johnson, longtime partner, owner, retired, and then Susan Matthews, who was our managing partner forever. She was the first full-time employee of Borshoff back in 1985. And so with that, Jennifer Diswaner, my current business partner of mine, we're looking at each other like, whoa, what does this mean for the agency going forward? And so at that time, we had two other professionals here, Jennifer Berry and Catherine Coble, and they were senior vice presidents at the time. And so we asked them into ownership. And so now it's the four of us, and we're really leading Borshoff into that next, I think we might be in Borshoff 3.0 now, since we're in our 35th year, but really exciting times, and it's really evolved and changed. And the CEO title for me is really just been since January of 2019. So with the four of us, we had each been here a long time, like each of us maybe almost 2 decades. And so we had worked together, but we were a brand new leadership team. And so about a year ago, we had a session where we went off site and we looked at our vision, we looked at our values, and we looked at our roles and responsibilities. And at that point, just decided that we needed more clarity in those roles for not only our teams, ourselves, but our clients. And so decided that a CEO really was the role that, because we were a democratic leadership team, there are certain times when you need that single person to be the decision maker, or make that final call. And so was honored again to be voted among my peer group here to be the CEO. And so we've been moving forward with these roles for about a year now, and it's been really exciting.
That's great. Well, tell us something. Culture is so important to you, and you started the podcast with that when I'd asked about, your experience through your challenging time. And so just give us a couple of examples of things you've done as CEO to really maintain and support your culture.
So one of the things that we're perfectionists here at Borshoff. We love to do things perfectly, and we all know that that's probably not a very attainable goal. But sometimes what we default to, how could we have done better? What could we have done to improve? And that is so important. I'm not saying that that's not important. But what we were finding was we weren't celebrating the positive things or the wins enough, that we were constantly striving for that next thing and not really pausing and reflecting on the good things that were happening. And so we have a monthly staff meeting. We call it Shoff Town, Shoff as in Borshoff. And at our monthly Shoff Towns, we do the very beginning, we do what we call Be Positive. And it's just a popcorn style where you pass around the microphone and just say something great that's happened, whether it's for a client or with our teams, or sometimes people will talk about something personal that happened. And it's really changed the dynamic of those town halls, just because it sets the stage for a really, whether or not there's heavy content that's going to be shared later or not, it just gets people in a really good mood to start off those meetings. So that's one fun thing. And then another thing that we've done recently is with those, I think I mentioned that we had restated our values. And so we are now doing an Employee of the Month program. And with that, you can nominate a coworker, and within the nomination form, you can give an example of one or all four of the values in terms of how that employee has been demonstrating that and why he or she is deserving of the Employee of the Month. So that's been really cool to kind of put those values into action and into practice.
Yeah. And both of those examples feel so aligned with your relational connective style as a leader. So no doubt you are modeling the way when it comes to both of those examples.
Yes, people know that I'm really passionate about those things, and I get excited of any time that we're celebrating something or giving recognition. And again, there are days when it's not all rosy, and there are things that, tough decisions have to be made, and we're not delivering the greatest news. But at the same time, I think it's all balance. And if you can share the good and really celebrate the good and what we're grateful for, then I think that just makes, when you have to deliver that bad news, it's okay, or it's not as bad. And another thing that I'll just tell really quickly is this November, we did a We're Thankful for You lunch for the team. And the four of us cooked a lunch, kind of a Thanksgiving lunch. I made the turkey. Nobody got sick, so that's really good. But one of the cool things that we did for each employee was we hand wrote a note to each one of them as to why we were grateful for that employee and what we thought that they contributed to the culture and the team here at Borshoff and the work. And then we individualized a small gift. It wasn't a huge thing, but a very individualized gift to each person. And it was the first time we'd done something like that. And it just went a long way. We got so many thank yous and nice notes and comments from people that it just seemed very special. And so I think, if the listeners are thinking about ways that they can really show that appreciation for their team members, anytime you can do something that's very individualized, I think that just goes a long way and goes back to building those strong relationships in your culture as part of your culture.
Yeah, I mean, everyone just wants to be seen, don't they? And everyone wants to feel like that what I'm doing is valuable. And that's such a great example of you saying to them, we see you, we see the great work you're doing, and thank you. Yeah, no doubt that goes a long way in lifting people up.
It really did. I think next year we're going to have to think of something to top that. I'm not sure. It's a good thing we've got 10 months. We can give it some thought.
Well, and you made a turkey.
And I made a turkey. Exactly.
That's something.
Exactly. I think I was more nervous about that than anything I've done in the last 12 months.
That's so good.
It turned out good, though.
Well, thank you for those examples. I mean, all three practical examples of ways to help people feel heard and seen and valued and appreciated. Particularly the be positive. I mean, just starting meetings with having everyone share something they're grateful for, like you said, is such a great way to set the tone for a positive meeting.
Absolutely. And I think those little those little peppering of that recognition just really goes a long way. And it's been interesting because at the beginning, I would send out an email like in advance of Shofftown and say, hey, don't forget, we're going to start the meeting with Be Positive. So think of some stories that you want to tell. And now I did that maybe 3 times, and I intentionally don't do that anymore. But once people got into the rhythm and the habit of it, it's really caught on.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And again, part of your culture and the values that you've identified. So if you could go back, what a journey you've had. And if you could go back, you said your journey started in 1997. So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think it would be not to worry so much. I think I come from I get it honestly. My parents are both big worriers. And I think that I tended back then to maybe either focus too much on certain things or the what ifs or why nots, and to really just be more at peace with where I was at the moment and and still with a vision and a goal that I was working towards, but not to fret so much about it, not to maybe be fearful of decisions or words or actions or anything like that, but to just be a little more confident and a little bit more at peace.
Well, and you have a strong faith. And so no doubt that provides a foundation that there's a bigger plan at work and that it will all undoubtedly work out as it's supposed to.
Absolutely. And I one of my strengths for Strengths Finder is belief. And so I do think that I demonstrate that day in, day out, but it's still hard. I mean, there's still second guessing and, we made this decision, but should we have? And so that I think that as a leader and as for maybe other leaders, just saying, gosh, it's okay. Like make your decision. And even, now being a CEO of an organization, I think when the other owners, when I was not an owner and I looked up to them, I always felt like they must have it all figured out, right? Like they had it all figured out. But now that I'm here, I'm realizing, they're doing exactly what I did. They had to make decisions and they didn't have the crystal ball that it might have seemed like they had.
Yeah, no, I think that's my biggest learning too, is that nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all just doing the best we can where we are with what we have.
It's kind of weird to say, back to your vulnerability thing. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but you also have to be comfortable with that you're making the best decision at that moment with the information that you have at hand. And you might have to change that tomorrow, but there's rationale for why you did it that way.
No doubt. Well, Karen, thank you so much for being a part of our show and for sharing this great insight. Lots of good takeaways through our conversation. If our guests want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, let's see. They can do my email, which is karen.alter@borshoff.biz, or I'm on LinkedIn. I believe it's just Karen Alter.
There you go. So they can find you there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think those 2 ways would be the best.
Okay. That's good. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast to never miss a Being at Work story.